Up and Atom! Today, I'm taking a look at the McFarlane Toys digital Atom and Green Arrow. How do they measure up? Stick around and find out. Welcome to 5 Points of Articulation. Starting with the packaging, and Green Arrow and Atom come on those black and turquoise style fidgetal boxes. This is the Green Arrow, and the Atom. Names and logos on the spine. Flipping around back, we get some really nice comic artwork. This shot in particular of Ray Palmer trying to outrun a chameleon is a lot of fun, though it looks like he's more interested in that big juicy beetle. For packaging, I'm giving Atom and Ollie 4 points. Moving on to presentation, and the Atom stands just a hair under 7 inches, or thereabouts 17.5 centimeters, while the hood brings Green Arrow to 7.25 inches, or 18 centimeters. The Atom was built off the Blue Beetle body, the dead giveaway being the superfluous band around the boot top. Also keep these boot tops in mind because we're going to come back to them in Playability. The only new sculpted piece is the head. It does a great job of capturing Ray Palmer's classic look. We have that Atom logo nicely stamped on the forehead, but may I suggest that if one wanted to swap that Atom out with an A, this would be a great start to a McFarlane scale Captain America. He's already got the blue eyes. Aside from that, all the other details have been painted on, and to McFarlane's credit, the red between the abdomen and the upper torso really do match very nicely. If I did have one gripe, however, it would be the belt. Again, the logo's nice, but that belt was only painted on, and if you were going to paint it on anyway, why couldn't you have aligned it with the top of the diaper? That would have at least done a much better job of minimizing how obvious that joint is. But what baffles me most is that Blue Beetle already had a sculpted belt that would have worked just fine for this. Granted, it's a little different, but I feel like this with the Atom logo painted on would have looked better than just this whole belt painted on. Admittedly, between the two, the character I was the most excited for was Green Arrow. Believe it or not, the Green Arrow figure also has a fair amount of reuse, but not from a DC Multiverse figure. Instead, Oliver shares parts with Inigo Montoya from The Princess Bride. Those include the upper arms and also the legs and boots. At first I had mixed feelings about this, but this particular figure is based off the Longbow Hunter saga, and looking at that artwork, yeah, this is perfect. Not only that hooded look, but the looser sleeves, the tunic, and even the slighter proportions and boots really do capture that comic. Zooming on in, the face is fantastic. I really love the sculpting and coloring of the beard. I'm also impressed as always by the stitches and texture detailing. He's got the nice golden G on the belt, and flipping around back, I'm all a quiver. That's not to say I don't have one minor nitpick. I like how these first 2 rows of fasteners were painted, but then they just kind of dropped the ball for the rest of them. I wish that they would have either painted them all or just left them all. As is, that half and half does kind of bug me and makes me want to go in and paint them myself. Another cool detail is that they sculpted his right hand to look like he's knocking an arrow. I do hope at some point we get that classic Bronze Age, more superpower style Oliver, but for now, I'm happy. So happy, in fact, that for presentation, I'm giving Green Arrow 4 points, while that painted on belt knocks the Atom down to 3 points. Moving on to Poseability, and we're pretty familiar at this point with what that Blue Beetle buck can do, but never having picked up any of the Princess Bride figures, I'm pretty curious about what Ollie can do. From the top, he does have this hood in the way, so it goes without saying there is going to be some limitation. In fact, to Oliver's credit, his head does look up higher than Atom's, but because the hood doesn't move, I'm not really quite sure what he's looking at. He also gets further down than I expected due to that goat beard. Tilt is possible, albeit a bit hindered, and while not a full half moon, he does still have a pretty realistic limit of side to side. All things being equal, a lot better than I expected. Moving down, and Atom gets the higher arm raise. Alas, Ollie also doesn't have quite as much forward and back, leastways not compared to Ray's rotator cuff. Both do, however, have bicep swivel, and while I'd love to see McFarlane start dabbling in pinless joints, especially if those Marvel Legends rumors I've been hearing turn out to be true, you can't beat the bend on their double elbows. And then at the ends of those arms are wrist balls that can swivel and hinge in any direction. Moving to the middle, and Atom has the typical McFarlane diaphragm joint and dumbbell waist, whereas the tunic on Oliver serves as an overlay. I can get this far back, but that's only also moving the groin backwards as well, and this is all I can do hunching forward. He also doesn't really get much in the way of tilt. That said, even swivel is a bit hindered. With this tunic being one solid piece, I don't really see how that could have worked out any differently. Benefiting from that Blue Beetle body, however, and Atom can arch back this far, but only hunch forward this far. That said, he does get a very respectable amount of tilt and twist. Below the belts and tunics, and both have standard McFarlane hips. They can kick this high with Adam having a slight edge, but both get a perfect split. They also both have twist in the hip, but admittedly Adam's is better. Moving down, and both have double jointed knees, with Oliver having the deeper bend. They've also both got toe articulation and ankle balls that can swivel, hinge, and pivot. Limited hunch forward aside, the articulation on the Atom is pretty standard, and while Green Arrow's head articulation is much better than expected, that torso articulation definitely missed the mark. For Poseability, I'm giving the Atom 4 points. As for Green Arrow, I'm giving him an okay 3 points. Moving on to Playability, and each figure comes with a trading card. If you want to read about the Atom, pause here, and if you want to read about Green Arrow, pause here. They also each come with one of these. It's a scratch-off to redeem a code for the digital token, which is basically a 3D rendering of the figure that exists in a digital showroom. Their value comes from the limited number of codes available. It's essentially the action figure equivalent of an NFT. As a more tactile person who likes to be able to fiddle with their toys and display them out in the open, it doesn't really appeal to me, but from the comments, I know a bunch of you do really like this, and more power to you. Each figure also comes with a stand. As for the Atom, throughout the video, we've been looking at this fist and grabby hand. He's also got a left open hand and a right-handed pointer. Additionally, Atom comes with a miniaturized version of himself. He stands at 3.5 inches or 9 centimeters. To give you an idea of scaling, that places Ray in between the comic book miniature version of Page Punchers and Spin Master. Without any articulation to help out, you just kind of have to bend the legs into shape and hope that they'll stand. Considering the Quisp figure that came with the Silver Age Aquaman, it's kind of frustrating. And on that note, I'd point out Aquaman had a lot more accessories, including an extra head. At the very least, a few more hands would have gone a long way to add some value. And just a thought, had they scaled Atom and articulated him like a Page Punchers, that might have been a nice backdoor way to get people interested in that line. What I will say is that it's sculpted and painted nicely, including those bands around the tops of his boots, making him feel more consistent with the full-size version. That's actually a pretty nice touch. Green Arrow, of course, comes with an arrow that has a little bit of extra painting at the feathers, as well as this entire bundle, which stores nicely in the quiver. Now remember when I mentioned this arrow holding hand? He actually can hold it properly. That's a really nice design element. The problem, however, is this longbow hunter's longbow. No extra painted detail, but it's sculpted well. The bigger issue is it doesn't have a string. I would point out that there are a lot of safety and logistical reasons as to why most action figure bows don't have strings. Most of the time they just have a plastic one. If given the choice though, I do like it better this way. That way posing him looks more natural, and if I wanted to, I could try to add my own string. If I could have had any accessory, it would have been nice to have an alternate right hand. As is, and Ollie is stuck forever doing the claw from Liar Liar. But Playability is more than just mini-me's and NFTs. It's also about how well your figure plays with others. Starting with the only other Atom in my collection, and here's the Page Punchers version. And for my only other McFarlane Green Arrow, here we have the original release of Injustice 2. For a Green Arrow supporting character, and here we have Arsenal. But for the Green Arrow supporting character we need most, and here's hoping we get a Black Canary. As for some other classic style DC heavy hitters, and here's Action Comics 1000 Superman, along with the Walmart exclusive gold label cloth cape version. Here we have Hush, whose blues and reds look pretty good with the Atom, along with DC Classic and Crisis on Infinite Earths. As for Batman, the most obvious comparison, of course, is Nightfall, though I will say I really like the brighter, more superpowersy blue and gray of Year 2. For a couple of other bats from my belfry, however, and here we have 3 Jokers, and the blue and gray version of Hush. Rounding out that DC Trinity, of course, and here we have the Collector Edition Wonder Woman. But for the rest of the Justice League, and here's the Flashpoint version of Barry Allen, an Endless Winter Aquaman with the alternate Barry head to give him a more classic feel. For one of the most important Green Arrow comparisons, though, and here's his pal Hal Jordan. This is the one from the Dawnbreaker 2-pack, but for the one I'll be displaying him with, and here's the Silver Age Phygital version. For a few more classics, though, and here's the Target exclusive Martian Manhunter, and once again that base model for the Atom, Blue Beetle, and Booster Gold. For one of my favorites, and matching very nicely with Atom, and here's Red Tornado. Hopefully we get a straight up red and yellow version of him. The McFarlane Collector Edition Firestorm, and for maximum superpowers vibes, the Platinum Edition of Hawkman. For a relative scale comparison, here's Ray and Ollie with Pizza Spidey and the Spectacular Spider-Man. And speaking of scale, here they are with Stealth Iron Man. Alright, well, just because you scaled me down doesn't mean I work for scale, so remember that, buddy. Obviously, the digital aspect is a category of playability all its own. Even so, in comparing them to other figures in the line for playability, I'm giving the Atom 3 points. Oliver, on the other hand, gets 4 points. This leaves us with nothing left to discuss but the price. Each one of these figures retails for $24.99, which is $2 more than a standard DC Multiverse. The $2 extra being for the digital token. As a collector who is just here for the plastic, I don't know that I feel like the value is there as much this time around. The good news is that not only are both figures still available, but on Amazon at least, they're below retail. For price, I'm giving Green Arrow and Atom 4 points, giving Green Arrow a final total of 3.8 out of 5, and the Atom a final total of 3.6 out of 5. Thanks again to McFarlane Toys for making this video possible by sending me these guys to review. Until next time, play nice and have fun.